Saddharma Sanghastapaka Lokanang Hitakarinam Vibhumane Mannam Saranyakanam Nana Shastra Vicharanam Saddharma Sanghastapaka Lokanang Hitakarinam Vibhumane Mannam Saranakaram Radha Krishna Padaravinna Bhajananandi Namatvalikam Vande Lupatan.
Kuma Gyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Ajunulambito Bujo Kanakabhatatu Sankirtanaika Pitaro Kamalaya Taksho Vishwambaro Dvijabaro Yugadharma Palo Vande Jagat Priyakaro Karunabhataro Vande Śrī Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodito Gurudaya Pushpavanto Chitra Sangdo Tamamuno Vandeham Śrī Ramakrishna Abhayo Charano Sako Sukado Paramanando Sundaro Subalapriyo Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye.
Glorious devotees, Shri Vaishnava Guru Parampara Ki Jai, Shri Jiva Goswami Ki Jai, Shri Sandarbhas Ki Jai. So we continue with our discussion on the Fourfold Army of the Paribhasa Sutra from the Śrī Kṛṣṇa Sandarbha. We will continue today where we left off in our last discussion. Again, we're reminded that this entire Sandarbha is centered on this one pada, Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam, from the Srimad Bhagavatam's 3rd chapter, 28th verse. And we are now in the Fourfold Army in support of the Paribhasa Sutra. The first division was supportive statements, wherein the statements from the Bhagavatam reinforce the Paribhasa Sutra. In this second division, which we are continuing today, Shri Jiva Goswami is showing that Krishna is the main subject of all the Bhagavatam's major dialogues. And then we will continue into the third and fourth divisions as we progress in discussing this fourfold army. So this section comprises Anuchetas 44 through 73. And we continue today with Anucheta 60. Narada sings the Leela of Krishna. In the following two verses spoken by Śrī Vyasadeva, Śrī Nārada clearly refers to Krishna. I wander all over singing the Līlās of Śrī Hari, Krishna, while playing on his vīṇā instrument, which was given to me by the effulgent Lord deva-datta, and is adorned with the 7 musical notes that embody Brahman in the form of sound. When I sing of the heroic deeds of the Lord, whose glory is most endearing, and whose feet are the source of all holy places, he quickly appears in my heart as if summoned by me. I'm going to take a short pause here and try to correct the problem. And we're back. Continuing with the 60th Anucheta, which continues as follows. The effulgent Lord Deva can refer only to Śrī Kṛṣṇa, as it is well known from the upari-bhāga of the Liṅga Purāṇa that it is he who personally gave the vīṇā to Narada. From the congruity of meaning, it naturally follows that the form of the Lord that appeared in Narada's heart is exactly that in which he gave him the vīṇā. Remembering the gift of the vīṇā bestowed upon him by Śrī Kṛṣṇa, Narada used the compound deva-datta given by the effulgent Lord, specifically out of the deliberation on him. So we can see here that the specific manifestation of the Godhead, which Narada is praising and singing about, is Bhagavan Śrī Kṛṣṇa. Again, it's important to us to recognize as Gaudiya Vaishnavas that Jiva Goswami's conclusions regarding the Srimad Bhagavatam are specifically in line with the understanding of the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. Not all Sampradayas will read the verses of the Bhagavat Purāṇa and come away with the same understanding. We do believe we have some inside understanding when we study Srimad Bhagavatam, and still we are, as Gaudiyas, very, very broad reach of the Gaudiya Sampradaya allows for other interpretations and other understandings and worship of other manifestations of Śrī Kṛṣṇa, who we understand is the top of the hierarchy. But if others want to see and understand things in a different manner, we're not adverse to that, although we may want to try to sway them to our understanding through sound logic and reasoning. And Śrī Jiva Goswami is the foremost in this art. A little from the commentary here. The story of Narada taking music lessons from Krishna and his wives, Jambavati, Satyabhama, and Rukmini, is described in the Liṅga Purāṇa. We go on to the 61st Anucheta. Narada instructs Vyasa regarding Krishna. Therefore, the following verse is to be explained precisely in the same manner as referring to Śrī Kṛṣṇa alone. O Vyasa of unfailing vision, through self-inquiry, Atmana, know yourself, Atmanam, to be an expansion of the Supreme Person, the immanent self of all creation. Although unborn, he has taken birth for the welfare of the world. Therefore, describe extensively his divine play, whose majesty is supreme above all. Since the majority of you are very much familiar with the content of the Srimad Bhagavatam, we will not go into deep detail here, but this verse from the 5th chapter is simply referring to Narada's enthusing Srila Vyasadeva to enter deeply into samadhi, and in that samadhi come away with a solution to his discontent. And that solution, of course, is giving the highest regard to Bhagavan Śrī Kṛṣṇa in the Bhagavad Purāṇa, a rewriting of the Bhagavad Purāṇa specifically for that purpose. That would completely satisfy him. The Anucheta continues. Jiva Goswami writes, O you of unfailing vision, though through self-inquiry, know yourself to be an expansion, or in other words, a portion of the Supreme Person. Additionally, you should also know that although he is unborn, he has just appeared in the form of Śrī Kṛṣṇa for the welfare of the world. Knowing these two truths, you should describe extensively the divine play of Śrī Kṛṣṇa alone, whose majesty is supreme above all, meaning that the prowess exhibited by him exceeds even that of all other avatars and avataris. Since you yourself are Ishwara, you should not display your Maya in the form of self-ignorance. This is the intended sense. So this is interesting that Narada is pointing out to Vedavyāsa that he is a kala expansion, an amsa of Bhagavan Śrī Kṛṣṇa. So he's telling him you're not just anybody, not just any normal jiva. You're actually an expansion of the Supreme Lord himself, and you are empowered. So utilize your power and empowerment and the energies of Śrī Kṛṣṇa to understand comprehensively through samadhi the divine līlās of the Supreme Lord, and then make those līlās available to human society. This would be the topmost gift that you could give, which would far exceed all the gifts you've already given in making available to human society in a written form, the Vedas, the Puranas, the Mahabharata, all the Upanishads, Vedanta, Sutra, etc. So, in other words, you're feeling discontent now. Understand your real position. Don't act like you're ignorant. There's no possibility of you being ignorant because you are an expansion of Krishna and you are empowered by him. So, following my instruction, use your empowerment and do this service. This will satisfy you. When you let everyone in human society know the position of Bhagavan Śrī Kṛṣṇa as the topmost manifestation of divinity and his unalloyed devotion, the topmost attainment. Love for him is the topmost attainment. The Vedas may point in so many different directions in order to satisfy so many desires that have come in relationship to the material energy and then culminate in relief from material suffering entirely, artha, dharma, kama, moksha. All this is there, comprehensively presented. You've already done that. Now give them that fifth purushartha, prem prayojan. This will fully satisfy the necessity of humanity and fully satisfy the discontent that you currently feel. The Anucheta continues, consequently, for the sake of manifesting the Bhagavad Purāṇa, Śrī Nārada instructed Śrī Vedavyāsa exclusively in the Śrī Kṛṣṇa mantra, which consists of the names of 4 expansions, Chaturvyuha. In doing so, the supremacy of the worshipper of Śrī Kṛṣṇa is also pointed out, as stated below. Obeisances unto you, O Bhagavan Vasudeva, we meditate upon you. Obeisances also unto Pradyumna, Aniruddha, and Sankarshan, one who thus worships the master of sacrifice, whose form consists of mantra, and who is devoid of material form, by uttering the above names, is certainly endowed with complete vision. The meaning is self-evident. So here in the Srimad Bhagavatam is narrated the Krishna mantra that Narada bestowed upon his disciple, Srila Vyāsadeva. And in this mantra is actually the Supreme Lord himself. Some commentary in this regard. The mantra given by Narada to Vyasa specifically addresses Śrī Kṛṣṇa along with his 3 expansions in the form of his brother, son, and grandson. He is referred to here as Mantra Murti, indicating that he is realized through the form of the mantra. The mantric vibration or linguistic pulsation is non-different from him, since he is identical with his name. That this mantra pertains exclusively to Krishna and not to some other form of Bhagavan is confirmed by the sage Karabhajana, who, while describing the form of Bhagavan that manifests in the Dwapara age, recited the following mantra: I offer obeisances unto Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. I offer obeisances unto you, O Bhagavan. So we see repeatedly throughout the Bhagavad Purāṇa that the primary Istadeva of the majority of the speakers of the various narrations within Srimad Bhagavatam is Bhagavan Śrī Kṛṣṇa. And although in the narrations, other manifestations of him may apparently be addressed or being addressed, really it is Krishna alone who the prayers are intended for. So the intent of the prayers is Śrī Kṛṣṇa, even though other manifestations of the Lord may be mentioned. Because as Sri Jiva points out repeatedly in this portion of the Krishna Sandarbha, the nature of the prayers and the narrations and the context, all that points to Bhagavan Śrī Kṛṣṇa and no other manifestation, even if another manifestation is apparently being addressed. Continue to the 63rd Anucheta. Krishna is the sole aim of Brahma. Next, it is shown that Śrī Kṛṣṇa is the sole aim of Śrī Brahma, who spoke as follows to Śrī Nārada. Another dialogue from Brahma to Narada. To dispel the misery of the earth, which will be oppressed by the armies of the Asuras, Bhagavan himself, whose partial manifestation was white, has white and black hair, and whose manner is beyond the scope of ordinary human beings, will personally appear and perform actions that exhibit his superhuman glory. This is from the second canto. Jiva writes in regards to this verse, to relieve the misery of the earth, which will be oppressed by the armies of the Asuras, he indeed, who transcends even Paramatma, and whose manner is thus beyond the scope of ordinary people like ourselves, will appear on earth and perform deeds. Who is this? It is he whose partial manifestation has black and white hair. And this points back to earlier discourse. The Anucheta continues. In other scriptures, such as Vishnu Purāṇa and Mahabharata, discussed in Anucheta 29, we find the widely known account of the Devas beholding Kshirodakshai Vishnu, who exhibited white and black hair. Even that form, however, is merely a partial manifestation of he who is verily Swayam Bhagavan. Here, the inclusion of Sri Baladev in the description of Krishna's appearance is indicated because Krishna is never without him. The following doubt may be raised in this regard. How is it that this Bhagavan, who is superior even to the Purusha, will personally appear merely to relieve the burden of the earth? Jiva therefore addresses such a doubt that one may have. Anticipating such an objection, Brahma responds, he will also perform actions that exhibit his own superhuman glory, meaning those actions that disclose the transcendental splendor of his supreme maleficence, and that are discussed extensively by his devotees. Although relieving the burden of the earth could easily be accomplished merely by his partial manifestation, or even by a mere semblance of his will, yet he will appear with the intent of spreading the cloud bank of his divine play to show his own maleficiousness, Madhuri, bestowing bliss upon his devotees. who subsist only on his lotus feet. This indeed is clearly expressed in the very next verse. Jiva continues and quotes from the second canto. To suck out the life of the demoness Putana, even while just a baby, to turn over a cart with his foot when he was only 3 months old, and to uproot 2 sky-piercing Arjuna trees simply by crawling between them are all otherwise unimaginable. The word ataratha, otherwise, implies that unless undertaking with the intent to disclose the transcendental splendor of his own maleficiousness, deeds such as sucking out Putana's life and so on are simply unimaginable, being performed by him while having assumed the delightful form and disposition of a tiny baby. Such implicit intent is the true purpose of his appearance. Since relieving the earth of its burden could be accomplished merely by his partial manifestation or even by a mere semblance of his will, such is the meaning of this verse. It's rather long Anucheta, but I believe it's quite clear. Jiva's intent here to let us know beyond any doubt that relieving of the burden of the earth or reestablishing the principles of religion are simply secondary aspects of the Lord's advent. In a similar vein, Jiva continues, we may consider the following verse spoken by Arjuna. This avataric descent of yours is undertaken with the intention of ridding the earth of her burden and to perform such acts that will impel your own people and those who are exclusively devoted to you to meditate ceaselessly on you. He then quotes Sridhar Swami. Swamipad himself comments in this regard. Krishna asked, Is it not possible for the earth's burden to be removed merely by my will? To this, Arjuna replies, and to impel your own people to meditate ceaselessly on you. So we can see that such continual meditation on the Leelas of the Lord is the primary objective. And even though many places in Scripture it's mentioned that the Lord comes to relieve the burden of the earth, yadahi dharma sya, reestablish religious principles. Such statements in Scripture are merely the outside appearance. Such dealing with such matters on the material plane can be easily accomplished just by the Lord's willing it. He doesn't need to make an avataric descent, but he's drawn to display his Leelas coming into the worlds. He's drawn to that by the prem bhakti of his devotees. He fulfills their desire to have his association. He fulfills their ambition to enter into his eternal Leela by performing, by coming in and displaying his earthly Leela. We can enter through the pages of the Bhagavatam, and for those that have advanced up to the stage of bhava and are entering into prem, they can personally observe some of those devotees who did not perfect their life take birth in the heavenly realm. They're even invited into the Leela through the forms of the Lord's eternal associates. So in so many ways, the Lord is drawn to the loving devotion of his devotees. And this is seen by Gaudiya Vaishnavas as the primary intent of the Lord's avataric descent. The Anucheta continues. The next verse is also relevant to the context. This is from the 10th canto. All glories to Śrī Kṛṣṇa, the shelter of all beings, who, although unborn, is said to have taken birth from Devaki, who was encircled by the very best of the Yadavas. By his own arms, he dispelled all irreligiosity. He removes the misery of all mobile and immobile beings. By his beautiful smiling face, he aroused amorous feelings in the hearts of the women of Vraj and Mathura. Here also, Sridhar Swami comments, even though he is fully capable of dispelling irreligiosity merely by his will, yet for the sake of his divine play, it is said that he did so with his arms. Therefore, on the basis of such verses, it is perfectly clear that Brahma was also absorbed in describing the most wonderful Leelas of Śrī Kṛṣṇa alone. What more need be said when Brahma himself prays in the following manner? I would deem it my great fortune to take even a lowly birth here in this forest of Vraj, so that I might be showered with the dust of the feet of any of the residents of Gokula, whose life and totality is Bhagavan Śrī Kṛṣṇa, the bestower of liberation, Mukunda, the dust of whose feet is sought by the Shrutis even to this very day. We've also heard a similar prayer from Uddhava when he was granted a similar entrance into Vraj directly by Krishna. Brahma's entrance was kind of self-imposed. Uddhava's came to him in the form of instruction from Krishna. But the result of both of their encounters with Vraj and their observance of the Lord's devotees there and the Lord's Leelas there was that they understood the exalted position of all the residents and the Lord's eternal associates who descend with him, and they desired somehow or other to simply take the dust from these eternal residents. And this is the path that Gaudiya Vaishnavas aspire to, Raganuga Bhakti. We want to follow the path of the Lord's eternal associates. We want to become their das, anudas. We want to enter into that domain by becoming the servant of the Lord's eternal servants. So this is quite unique. Nadanam najanam nasundarim kavitram va jagad ish kamaye mama janmani sware bhavatad bhaktir ahaitaki twai. Sri Chaitanya himself prays that I have no desire for this common religiosity of the world, even up to the point of liberation. rather I be born again and again. I only want to be such a servant as these servants, as the servants that are your eternal associates. So both Brahma and Uddhava are exemplars in this regard. A little bit from Satyanarayan Das Babaji's commentary on this extensive Anucheta by Jiva Goswami. In this Anucheta, Sri Jiva analyzes the intention of Brahma. Once Narada approached his father Brahma, praising him as the creator of the universe and questioning him regarding the nature of the universe and Brahman. Tellingly, Narada admitted that though he was unaware of anyone equal or superior to Brahma, he was yet puzzled why even someone of his stature was compelled to undergo penances. Brahma responded to this in chapters 5, 6, and 7 of the second canto. In his explanation of these verses, Sri Jiva makes it clear that the real purpose of Krishna's appearance was not to relieve the earth of unrighteous kings, but to perform acts that disclose his supreme madhurya and that impel constant remembrance in his devotees. This is also stated in the context of the Rasa Leela. Out of compassion for all sentient beings, Krishna took shelter of the human form and enacted such divine play, upon hearing which one becomes exclusively devoted to him. This is a verse from this Bhagavad Purāṇa's 10th canto, 33rd chapter. A little bit more here. In conclusion, Sri Jiva cites another verse from the 10th canto prayers of Brahma to Krishna. Therein, Brahma expresses his wish to be born even as a creeper in Vrindavan, so that he may be graced with the dust from the feet of the residents of Vraj. He considers such a birth to be the greatest fortune that could befall him, upari-bhāga. This makes his intention unmistakably clear. We continue into the 64th Anucheta. Krishna is the speaker of the Bhagavat's 4 seed verses. This is a extremely long Anucheta dealing with an extremely deep subject and bringing out the instructions of Krishna directly to Lord Brahma, constituting the first speaking of the Srimad Bhagavatam. In a similar manner, the Bhagavan, who is the speaker of the 4 seed verses of Bhagavad Purāṇa, is indeed Śrī Kṛṣṇa. This can be understood from the following statement, which serves as a prelude to those verses. There in Vaikuntha, Sri Brahma beheld the omnipotent Lord, Vibhu, the protector of all the Sattvatas, the husband of the goddess of fortune, Shri, the master of sacrifice, and the Lord of the cosmos, who was being served by his chief personal attendants, headed by Sunanda, Nanda, Prabhala, and Arhana. So this, as Jiva unfolds, you will see his extraordinary arguments in support of this key understanding that it was Bhagavan Śrī Kṛṣṇa himself whom Brahma saw and who instructed Brahma. So his transcendental vision, the result of his samadhi, resulted in darshan with the Supreme Lord, and the manifestation of the Supreme Lord, which Brahma beheld, was Bhagavan Śrī Kṛṣṇa. Although the verses may seem to indicate other manifestations of the Lord, Jiva is going to give us the Gaudiya perspective here. In this verse, the word Sattvatam refers to the heroes of the Yadu clan, and hence the phrase Akila Sattvatam Pati means the Lord or protector of all the Yadu heroes, specifically Śrī Kṛṣṇa. This intention is validated by its correspondence with the following verse, also spoken by Sri Sukha in the second canto. May Bhagavan, who is the husband of Shri, the goddess of beauty, the master of sacrifice, the Lord of all created beings, the ruler of all intellects, the overseer of the universes, the sustainer of the earth, the protector and refuge of the Andakas, Vrishnis, and Sattvatas, and the support of the devotees, please be gracious to me. Shastra Yukti here at its supreme. Jiva continues. For this reasoning, it is concluded that the omnipotent Lord Vibhu, whom Brahma beheld and who subsequently revealed to him the Bhagavat's 4 seed verses, is Śrī Kṛṣṇa. This understanding also accords with Śrī Kṛṣṇa's own statement to Uddhava in the 3rd canto. Previously, at the dawn of creation, that supreme knowledge which reveals my glory and which great sages call the Srimad Bhagavat was spoken by me to the unborn Brahma, who was seated on the lotus that had sprung from my navel. Jiva continues, the Gopal Tapani Upanishad also confirms that it was Krishna himself who instructed Brahma, as in the following verse. A person aspiring for liberation should take shelter of that supreme deva who illumines the self and the intellect, who brought forth Brahma at the beginning of creation, and who, as Śrī Kṛṣṇa, imparted knowledge unto him. That it was Krishna who spoke the Bhagavat to Brahmas is confirmed by the fact that according to the following statement of the Gopal Tapani Upanishad itself, in some particular kalpa, Śrī Kṛṣṇa displayed his very own cowherd form to Brahma at the onset of creation. And Jiva quotes another verse from the Gopal Tapani Upanishad. He, Brahma, replied, O Brahmanas, Sanaka, and so on, during the first half of my life, I meditated upon him, and of my life, I'm sorry, I miscopied that, but anyway, I meditated upon him and praised him constantly. Then at the end of one parada, after 50 years of Brahma's life, at the end of his night, that supreme Purusha awoke from his sleep of supercognitive absorption, yoga nidra, and appeared before me as a cowherd boy. Excuse me 1 second. The same conclusion that Krishna spoke the Bhagavat to Brahma is also verified by the fact that his abode will be established later in Anucheta 106 as Maha Vaikuntha, thy Vaikuntha wherein Brahma beheld the omnipotent Lord Vibhu. Then Jiva quotes the Brahma Samhita. Then Brahma, the four-faced receptacle of the four Vedas, appeared there on the lotus sprouted from the navel of Bhagavan, coming into existence and being impelled to his destiny by the potency of Bhagavan. He focused his mind on the intent to create, according to the past impressions stored in his unconscious. In that moment, however, he perceived only darkness all around and nothing else. Suddenly, Bhagavan's divine voice spoke, addressing him. Receive now this mantra. It consists of the seed word of the mantra, Kambij, Klim, followed by Krishnaya, Govindaya, and Gopijana Vallabhaya, and terminating with the word Swaha. Literally, Vani Priya, the wife of the fire god Agni, who is named Swaha. This mantra will grant whatever you cherish as most dear. Through meditation on this mantra, be now engaged in penance. In penance, be now engaged. In doing so, your perfection will come to be. Thereafter, Brahma engaged in penance for a very long time, delighting the imperishable Govinda, Brahma Samhita. In regards to the phrase, Sunandananda Prabhalar Hanadibi, from the principal verse under discussion, it is to be known that during Krishna's appearance at Dwarka, Prabhala and other personal attendants were present along with Sunanda and Nanda, whose names have been mentioned in that context, as stated in the first canto, and one of the other chief sattvatas headed by Sunanda and Nanda. Jiva then continues, what more need be said? In spite of the existence of innumerable avatars and avataris, it is seen right from the beginning of this great Purana, Śrī Bhagavat, that the aim of Sri Sunaka and the other sages was fixed exclusively on Śrī Kṛṣṇa. In this regard, they had remarked, paraphrasing their words from Srimad Bhagavatam, although we have just inquired in a general way about the ultimate welfare, the essence of all scriptures, and the cause of the supreme fulfillment of the self, yet all of this indeed you can disclose to us simply by narrating the divine Leela play of Śrī Kṛṣṇa. With this intention, Sonika declared in the very next verse, O Sutta, you may be blessed with all auspiciousness. May you be blessed with all auspiciousness. You know with what intent Bhagavan Śrī Kṛṣṇa, the protector of the sattvatas, appeared from Devaki, the wife of Vasudeva. The benediction, may you be blessed with all auspiciousness, is expressed because of the enthusiasm that arose in connection with the question regarding Śrī Kṛṣṇa's Leela. The word Bhagavan here refers to the original avatari, Krishna himself, who is self-endowed with complete majesty, Purna Aishvarya. He is the master of the sattvatas, or in other words, of the yadavas. The correct form of the word should have been sattvatanam instead of sattvatam. The absence of the nut agama is an archaic usage, arsa. The word jata, took birth, means he became visible to the world. So quite a bit to unpack there, but the key intent of jiva in this extensive anucheta is to provide us entrance into the esoteric mystery of Brahma receiving the 4 seed verses of the Bhagavatam directly from Bhagavan Śrī Kṛṣṇa at the onset of creation. And the Bhagavatam supports this understanding in numerous places. This understanding also is there in the Gopal Tapani Upanishad, wherein the nature of the Gopal mantra is completely unpacked, and it's Brahma receiving its benedictions is explained. Commentary: at first glance, this statement appears somewhat paradoxical because it suggests a distinction between Bhagavan, the speaker of the 4 seed verses, and Krishna, who is signified by them. However, instead of proceeding to prove that Krishna alone is the sole intent of Bhagavan, as he did with the other principal speakers of the Bhagavat, Sri Jiva devotes the rest of this anucheta to prove that Krishna himself is the Bhagavan who disclosed the 4 seed verses to Brahma. By this, it also becomes self-evident that Bhagavan Krishna's aim is he himself. This parallels Krishna's own statement in the Gita, by all the Vedas, I alone am to be known. Indeed, I am the author of the Vedanta and the knower of the Vedas. Vedaschasavaraham eva vedyo, Vedantakrit Vedavid eva chaham. We'll finish up with the 65th Anucheta. And this will be a jumping off point for Jiva Goswami's entrance into a detailed unpacking of the initial inquiries made of Suta Goswami by Sunaka on behalf of the sages of Naimisharanya, and those principal questions which were answered, and how all those answers are in relationship to Bhagavan Śrī Kṛṣṇa. So from the first canto, first chapter, 13th verse, my dear Suta, please disclose to us who are eager to hear from you that intent of he whose avataric descent is meant for the protection and prosperity of all beings. So it's a general question. Jiva Goswami quotes Sridhar Swami, Swamipad comments, the word anga here means, O Suta, the clause tanno nuvarnayitum arhasi literally means it behooves you to disclose to us that intent of he whose avataric descent in general is meant for protection, keshmaya, and prosperity, bhavaya. So a little entrance here, and then something to look forward to in the next discussion. The final verse quoted in Anucheta 64. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.12, introduces a new subject. So from the last Anucheta, the final verse that Jiva quoted, he introduced there a new subject. The Bhagavat's opening conversation in which 6 questions are posed by Sunaka to Suta Goswami. These verses form the topic to be discussed over the next 9 Anuchetas. The questions or requests are as follows. What is the ultimate welfare for humanity? What is the essential engagement outlined in scripture by which the self can attain complete fulfillment? With what intent did Krishna appear from Devaki, the wife of Vasudeva? Please describe Krishna's magnanimous acts. Please describe the various avatars of Krishna. After Krishna's return to his own abode, where has Dharma taken shelter? The reply to these 6 questions forms the basis of the entire Bhagavad Purāṇa. Among them, the last 4 questions are directly related to Krishna. He comments that because Sunaka's intent was to hear exclusively about Krishna, his conviction was that the answer to his first 2 questions could be fulfilled simply by Suta's narrating the divine play Leela of Śrī Kṛṣṇa. Consequently, in the next 4 questions, he directly inquires only about Krishna. Being extremely eager to hear about him, he pronounces blessings on Suta in verse 1.1.12. It is unusual for a student to offer blessings to his own teacher, but this was done out of Sunaka's sheer outpouring of enthusiasm. From Sunaka's questions, it is unmistakably evident that the subject of the Bhagavat is Śrī Kṛṣṇa. So we'll enter into Jiva Goswami's utilization of these 6 questions to further support the Paribhasa Sutra, as soldiers would in a division of the army, which is the metaphor being applied here to this section of the Krishna Sandarbha. So we will wrap there for today. And if anyone has any specific question, we can address that. Otherwise, I sincerely thank you for this opportunity afforded by your association. Vanchakalpatubhyascha, kripasinvacha, patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavedya namo namaha. Thank you so very much. Hare Krishna.